Hey everybody, Hinterland Customs here, having a little bit of camera trouble, figuring some things out with this new camera. Anyway, we'll jump right into it here. As you can see in front of you, KV2 big turret. In the background there, that is a trumpeter kit. I have never built a trumpeter kit, so I'm pretty excited to build one. I decided to pull out the other 3 KV tanks that I've built in the past. Go over those real quick, talk a little bit about the project, talk about information online that is suspect, questionable, not true when trying to research some simple facts when building one of these tanks. Okay, first off, we have, this is the KV1 I built for Kursk. And you see it's got a cast turret that's kind of rounded here. And I talk about that because this turret you see is a little different. This is a KV8, which is essentially a KV1 with a different turret, slightly different turret, and it's got a flamethrower on it. So they actually had to move this gun over, I don't know how many centimeters or whatever unit of measurement you like to use, but they moved it over a little bit to the right if you're facing the tank and put in a flamethrower. This kit on the left, the KV1, this is an Eastern Express kit. This one is an ARC Models kit, which is essentially Eastern Express repopped, if you will. So they're both Eastern Express kits, basically. The one on the far right, of course, that's the KV2, and that is the main KV2 production line. That one is the Tamiya kit. As you can see, I don't know if I can zoom in here. Let's see. No, not letting me do it. That's interesting. Anyway, you can see well enough. KV2, the turrets are different. This one on the KV2B is essentially what this is called because it was a prototype. So they think there were 4 of these built. You got some angled iron here, and then you've got these iron struts or steel struts that are built up on the gun mantlet there, and they changed some of that around in here. So it is kind of cool to build one that is different. Even though it's subtle change, it is all about the turrets with these because the chassis are essentially all the same, with a few minor differences here and there, but for the most part it's all the same. Okay, so as far as this KV turret or KV tank, I wanted to build one. There was a story that there was one in Berlin. There was a KV2 being used by the Russian army in Berlin in 1945. Right at the end of the war when everything was going down. They did have a few KV tanks left that they were still using. The KV tank was it was a very good tank in the initial part of the war. And then between them and Germany, they kept going back and forth trying to, build something that could overcome the other one's forces and so forth. Later on, when the T-34 was built by the Russians, the KV line was phased out fairly quickly. Now, not too quickly, but it was becoming evident. The T-34 had a lot of more speed, and that was a big jump in technological advancement for them with these tanks. Now, when I say that these tanks are still being used where they can be used. There were a lot of them that got knocked out at Kursk. A lot of tanks in general got knocked out at Kursk, but they did lose some KVs in Kursk. So my whole story that I'm building on this tank was taking the very first tank and then imagining what it would look like if it had gone through the entire war. So if it had gone through the Finland part, it had gone through, say, Kursk and survived or been, and even been rebuilt a bit. Now, when I talk about rebuilt, a lot of these stories with the heavy tanks, they were left on the side of the road because they ran out of fuel. Also, a lot of stress on the engine and the gearbox. The cons on the KV2 in terms of engine and gearbox were very, very similar to the Tiger II from everything I've read. You can build up something very heavy, you can have a great gun on it, but you get too heavy and your engine and your transmission or your gearbox, if you will, they're going to have issues. And those were some issues that definitely hampered the KVs. Like I said, just like it hampered Tiger tanks, or the Tiger II in particular. But it was you know, it's also kind of a timing thing. What are you using the tank for? Can you just sit on a hill and fire at targets coming at you all day and repel shells? Or are you trying to move and go advance towards another enemy position? So anyway, it's always fun reading. I've got 2 tanks. Speaking of reading, I've got 2 books. This one is an excellent book. If you're ever into KV tanks, I would highly recommend picking up this one. As you can see, it's got a broken view, open view type deal there, showing the inside. There is a diagram inside showing all the parts. But this one has great write-ups of all the KV tanks and all the variants. It's got some great photographs as well, of course. The other one I have is called Stalin's Giants, and it's this one. This is an old one. And you look at the box art, that is the same box art. The book cover has the art that was used for the box art for the Tamiya KV2, which is over here on the right. Online, I went online and looked and saw some videos of other people that had built the Trumpeter KV2 big turret kit or the KV2B. One guy mentioned there were things that he found. One thing he thought was factually inaccurate were the road wheels. And, you know, with road wheels, like you see, this one's got ones where the holes are on the outside diameter. I don't even have that, but I guess I do on this one because that's the one I built. So you've got ones like this where, I'm sorry, it's not focusing very well, but you get the holes in the spokes, if you will, on the outside. On the early KVs, like these had, they had the spokes, I'll just call them spokes. They had spokes that ran from the top of the rim down all the way to the outside of the steel rim. And then you had ones that were kind of a mixed match of the two, where you had a little bit of the spike, or excuse me, the, whatever you call it, the spoke running down, but it doesn't go all the way to the outside of the rim. There were 4 actual, the reason I'm getting into wheels, I'll get to that in a second. So I'll get to it right now, I guess. The guy that talked about the incorrect wheels, he said that the wheels for this Trumpeter kit were incorrect. And how did that book escape me? Now I've got a missing book. Well, there it is. Okay. He said it was incorrect. So I thought, well, that's bad. Like, why would, I mean, we've seen that before. I've seen armor modelers talk about kits that have some historical inaccuracies with how they're presented. It doesn't seem to happen a lot from what I see. Car kits, same way. Car guys will tell you there's certain kits that come out, like there was a I won't mention the brand, but there was a pickup that came out a few years ago, and they said, yeah, everything's good on this except for the interior is completely wrong. Like, it's got the wrong this, it's got the wrong that. They didn't give you this option, which that one has predominantly. So those things happen. I was just kind of surprised with something as simple as a KV kit, considering no more that goes into what these tanks really look like. You know, there's not a ton of pieces to them, if you will, that they could be wrong. So what I did was I just went back through these books and I searched until near the end of this book in Stalin's Giants. There is our KV2B, and that one's in Latvia, 1941, destroyed by units of the 1st Panzer Division. There's a rare photograph. They don't have a lot of photographs of these prototypes, but there it is. And the road wheels are, you probably can't see it very well, but the road wheels are just like the ones that are in this kit. That guy actually took these wheels with the large spoke, the triangle spokes that run all the way from the rim to the ring. He took those and put it on it. So what I'm going to do to present this to be traveling all the way through the war to Berlin in 1945, I'm going to use both and just present it like, you know, some road wheels got damaged, and they do get damaged, of course. I've seen ones where there's just chunks of these blown apart. I've seen a lot where the pieces that are running the spokes are busted, just flat out busted off, and they look pretty thick steel. But yeah, you get even a Panzer III puts a shell on it at the right angle or something, it's gonna bust that little piece of metal right in half. So not saying it busted the wheel, but there's chunks that can be taken out of these wheels. So what I wanted to do is just show where it had been repaired. It had been repaired, refurbished. They'd taken some other wheels and thrown it on there and continued on. I don't think that's too far outside of, you know, any whatever rule there is on, you know, using some creative liberties, I guess. And again, these tanks, you know, they tried their best to repair these, and the Germans did as well. There was a lot of situations where they didn't have time to repair the tanks. From what I've reading, like, a lot of tanks ran out of fuel. That was another thing. You know, again, I mentioned that the KV2, like the Tiger II, they run out of fuel. If they get in a certain area, and the way the war is going, all the moving parts, you know, like I said, you might be in an area for a while defending a position, or you might be advancing on an enemy position. Some of them ran out of fuel. And then again, a lot of them, if the engine's seized up and you don't have time to sit there for 4 days overhauling an engine when you're out, when at any time an airplane or infantry or other tank squadron could come along and wipe you out, there wasn't a lot of that going on near the end of the war. So I just wanted to show one where they did take the time to try to patch this thing up and get it to Berlin. Anyway, this will be a fun build. These tanks, this first one in particular, the KV2B, they called the Dreadnought. And so that's what I'm just going to call it. I'm going to call the project like Dreadnought in Berlin or something like that. Going to do a lot of weathering on it. I'm going to do a lot of battle damage in terms of shell deflection on that turret. I've got a soldering iron type tool that it's like I guess you call it a soldering iron. It's a soldering iron, but you can literally recreate exactly what a shell bounce kind of looked like on these tanks. And fortunately, there is a lot of good photographic evidence of that I can use as reference. I've got one more KV2, KV1 book on the way. It might even be coming today, so I'm going to go through that. But yeah, and again, I'm not trying to draw out someone that said something inaccurate online. Maybe I misunderstood him. I just looked at the picture, and it looks to me like Trumpeter has the correct wheels on there. And again, when I was first building these, I didn't even notice that. You know, I built the first few and just didn't, I guess I wasn't paying too much attention to the wheels. But, you know, you get deeper into a project, you build more of these, and you'll learn more about all the little intricacies that separate them. And that's kind of fun to me, is trying to show a specific one in a specific time period and trying to be as accurate as you can. So anyway, that's all I have. I hope everyone is doing great out there. I hope your 2021 is going good, or better than your 2020 maybe, but everybody take care, and I'll look forward to seeing you on the next video. Hinterland Customs signing off.